Hi there, folks. Welcome to Pontiac Today. I'm Kevin McCormick. So glad that you could be here with us. We've got a great show for you today. One of Pontiac's own who's coming back to help the city in a really big way. We want to make sure that we welcome today Mr. Kaino Phillips. Kaino Phillips is the founder and CEO of the Clarence Phillips Ascend Foundation. And it's a foundation that's based in Pontiac that is determined to help the citizens of Pontiac. And we're glad that Kaino's here with us. Kaino, thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
Appreciate you being here.
That.
Tell us a little bit about the Ascend Foundation and what you're doing and what you hope to do.
Well, primarily, the Ascend Foundation was founded, on behalf of my father, Clarence Phillips, the late mayor of the city, and also state rep. And basically, the whole premise of this foundation is to go ahead and create an avenue to go ahead and deal with some of these kids who just didn't have all the advantages that was placed out there that some other kids might have from other different various backgrounds, is probably a better way of saying it. So we deal with disadvantaged youth.
And what kind of programs and activities are you doing with the youth to help move them further along?
Well, we have a multitude of different programs. You have programs dealing with job readiness. You have programs that are dealing with preparation after graduation. You have kids that were graduating out of high school but didn't have a clue how to position themselves for life. And so those are the type of issues that we have to go ahead and address out here. We have issues where we're dealing with trying to go ahead and prepare kids to give back, to go ahead and, everything has to be paid for. It's a full circle. And a lot of times we kind of get so caught off on our day-to-day, that we forget to go ahead and kind of instill those type of values in kids. And so we do that through through the various programs that we have, that we present.
So with the kids that you're reaching out to and that you're touching and the programs that you're offering, what are you seeing as the biggest obstacle that you're running into when you're dealing with the kids? What's the biggest thing that you have to work hardest to get over, to get through?
Well, actually, it's a combination of a few different things, Kevin. One thing that we kind of forget, at the end of the day, kids are kids. And, there's a maturity level that has to go ahead and take place that all of us have to go through. But when you go ahead and take that and you compound that on top of some of the things that are waiting in these households for these kids, a lot of kids, basically a kid can go to school every day, have the best experience humanly imaginable. But if they go home and everything is total chaos and mass confusion in the walls of their household, everything is erased. And we have to go ahead and reinstill that process the next day. So it's like, what's the movie that they had with Adam Sandler, 50 First Dates?
Oh.
It's like a bad version of 50 First Dates, the hood version. So it's what we're dealing with. But it has to be addressed because at the end of the day, for you to reach kids, you got to go ahead and be able to knock through some of those walls and barriers and obstacles that they have in front of them. Because at the end of the day, we got to go ahead and we got to smooth out their path. As adults, we have to go ahead and make their path a lot smoother. And so that's what we're doing.
So working with the kids and helping them kind of stabilize their home life, then in turn helps their academic life?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we have programs that are that forensic where, I found myself in plenty of households and living rooms. Because at the end of the day, you have some good parents out there, too, that are really looking to find every avenue possible to reach their kid, to give them the best opportunity to be successful. And so some of those obstacles cannot be met just by a basic phone call. Sometimes it takes more of a hands-on piece. And so I have myself and I have other people that are part of the foundation that step out there like that every day.
Now you are one man. You're Kaino Phillips. You're running this Ascend Foundation, doing
Yes.
a wonderful job, obviously.
Yes.
But you're reaching 7,000 to 8,000 kids per year, you told me at
Absolutely.
one point. So you're one man. That's a lot of kids that you're trying to get. What can the community do to help you reach those kids and perhaps reach even more kids?
Well, one thing I have to say about the community of Pontiac, since I put this particular foundation in place and we as an organization have actually grown it, we have a lot of people that have stepped up to volunteer. To be very practical with you, all the programs that we have, this foundation has already about 42 active programs. And if it wasn't for the volunteers and people stepping up, not only from the community of Pontiac too, I'm talking about outside the walls of Pontiac. I got people that are actually flown in to go ahead and do certain particular programs to help us. They see what we're trying to do here. Pontiac, we're fighting is what we're doing. I mean, we've had a lot of tough hits lately, and it's one of those situations when you kind of need all hands on deck. And the hands are really flying out, and I feel blessed, and I'm so appreciative of that. Because at the end of the day, if we didn't have that and these other partnerships that I've had with other organizations, we couldn't do the things that we do with the type of degree that that's going to be as impactful as they need to be. Because at the end of the day, we're not in the business just doing programs just for the sake of saying, hey, I did a program and I feel good about it. No, we're in the business of putting out programs that's going to go ahead and touch as many people as humanly possible, and also have something that's going to stick with those kids for the rest of their lives.
When I hear you talk about that, what I hear, the phrase that comes to my mind is changing lives, is that you are really trying to change these kids' lives in a positive way?
Kevin, I got to pay it forward, because at the end of the day, this is a reality too. You know, I grew up in a house, I had great parents, but I also grew up in a couple different neighborhoods, you know, where, things weren't always so great. But those neighborhoods raised us. It was an element that was present back then, where if you do something at one end of the street wrong, you're going to catch it 4 or 5 times before I got home, and then when I got home, it was really taking place.
Exactly.
That element has disappeared. So someone's going to have to fill in that void. Someone's got to go ahead and fill in that gap. And so that's where our challenge is right now. So that's where the big focus is. Go ahead and try to go ahead and fill in those gaps that are missing, but nevertheless, we can't just go ahead and put a rug over it. And so that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Now,
absolutely.
you recently had some like a big project at Bodek Park, I think, right?
Well, yeah, we had that was our Easter egg hunt. We actually had a couple programs over there. You know, we had a couple partnerships with different organizations, because I think that I'm real huge on that. Because one thing about this city, we've really been it's a trend that we've actually invited into our world, where basically we want to go ahead and be the organization to do the most, and sometimes we get so caught up in wanting the photo ops and wanting to go ahead and see our names up in lights that we forget the big picture. And the big picture is we need to cover as much ground as possible. So, yeah, these partnerships are really important. And so I reach out to different particular organizations. Certain organizations I think are really impactful and really got their minds in the right place to go ahead and push the progress forward that we need to have pushed. Those are the ones I love to go ahead and lock in with.
Well, talk to us a little bit about, because you have the foundation, obviously, unfortunately, in some cases, it takes money to make things happen.
Yes.
And you have to reach out, to corporations and foundations and other entities to help get funding for you to put on your program.
Absolutely.
What are some of the either the corporate sponsors or community sponsors that you can name that have come on board with you and helped you in any of the projects that you've been working on?
Well, the thing that's really huge about these type of sponsors is I have a combination, which is a rarity too. I've had an overabundance of individuals that have actually stepped up. Anytime I have any type of particular project or a program, I'm constantly putting it out there. And I have a multitude of people that are stepping up, offering, their financial resources as well as their physical presence at these particular programs.
Right.
But I have a combination of that taking place. We have a combination of corporate sponsors like Chrysler. Right now, we're in the process of trying to secure us a building. We're going to open up the Ascend Center.
Okay.
And with that center, we already have all our computers. We already have all of our furniture in place, thanks to Chrysler. Chrysler was kind enough to go ahead and furnish us with that.
And that Ascend Center is going to be here
Absolutely,
in Pontiac?
Absolutely. I couldn't have it any other place. It'd be very practical with you. If I was looking to take it to Auburn Hills or Waterford, as far as securing the right building, it would be easier. But it's got to be in Pontiac.
And how far away do you think you are from that building being ready to open and accept people?
I'm looking to have that building in place before the summer.
Before the summer?
Yes, I'm trying to secure it right now as we speak.
I look forward to being able to help you announce that building is open to the public and that you've
got
programs in that building.
We would love to have you.
I can't wait for that to happen. Now, the city has a community advisory committee.
Yes.
And that community advisory committee does what it does. How do you see your organization, the Ascend Foundation, as a bridge to that community advisory committee, and what kind of synergies can you see working together with that group?
Well, as it stands right now, we do a lot of work with Pontiac School District. When you start looking at the back to school rally, the trunk or treat programs, we've had an intricate part in being a part of that team, that machine, to go ahead and push forward what we had. And like you said, with the back to school rally, we we had over 5,000 kids out there. That trunk or treat program, we had about 4,200 kids. Okay. That's kids doing what they do best, having fun and enjoying themselves.
Right.
And that's what that's what a child is supposed to do. Once they graduate out of high school, and that's another obstacle we got to go and make sure we keep pushing forward. Keep pushing those kids to get, to graduate. But once we get to that particular point, those partnerships are everything. Pontiac School District is an organization that I do believe in. It's a school district that brought me up. I was educated, born and raised and educated here. This district was a premier school district.
Which high school did you go to?
Pontiac Northern.
Okay.
You know,
I want to make sure we got that in
yeah,
there.
yeah,
So-
absolutely. It's only one school to go to. Now, if my mother was there, you know, there'd probably be guerrilla warfare, given
Right.
the fact she taught at Central.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, you know, being realistic about this, I need to see this district. We need to see this district back to that particular prominence. That prominence was everything. You know, I know a lot of great men and women that came out of this particular school district, and you know, and they got their education right here. I believe that that district still does exist. I think you have leadership that are in place, you know, that are doing everything in their power to go ahead and deal with some of these obstacles that can be a hindrance.
Yeah.
You know, but they're doing what they can best, and by them to go ahead and pull back and humble themselves enough to reach out to other organizations to allow us to be a part of it is huge. Absolutely huge for this dynamic.
I agree. I think that the leadership is doing the right thing. I think they're tackling the problems head on.
Yes.
And as big as the problems have been, they seem to be addressing them head on, grabbing that bull by the horn, so to speak, and really trying to wrestle with that. With all the programs that you've done, you talked about the trunk or treat, you talked about the back to school rally, where you're reaching almost 5,000 kids in some cases.
Yes.
As successful as those programs are, unfortunately, you probably still have kids that you haven't been able to reach yet. How do you get to those kids? How do you bring those kids into the fold so that they can begin to experience the benefit of what the Ascend Foundation is offering?
It's repetition. It's repetition. The thing about kids, see, a lot of people think that, you know, because they are kids, you're supposed to walk in as an adult and say, listen, this is what you're going to go ahead and do, and that's just the way it goes.
Right.
This is a different day and time. It's a different breed of kid, too. And these kids are where they are right now, widely because of some of the things that we as adults did or did not do. So to reach these kids, you got to earn it, is how I look at it. You know, you can't just show up with a program one day and say, well, yes, you know, hey, I'm Kaino from the Ascend Foundation. I'm going to give you these, you know, unicorns and rainbows. You know, I'm going to make your life like that. That's not reality.
Right.
Reality is coming back day after day after day, continuously giving them different programs and avenues, showing them that you really care, showing them that you really want to be there for them, and showing them that, and helping them to believe that there's some other options out there for you, and you got some people that really do care to push you and see you get to that next level.
Right.
And that's where we are with it. But to reach them all, you know, Kevin, it is a degree of frustration. It is, because, you know, I look out there and there's certain kids that, you know, if I line 10 kids up, you know, I may be able to go and reach 5 kids immediately. You know, but it's also my job to go and figure out how, after I got those 5 in the pocket, I got to figure out how to go and reach those other 5. And that's why I got to roll up my sleeves a little bit tougher and figure out different angles to reach them. And I also got to humble myself enough to know that if I'm not the one that this kid is able to gel with, I got other people that I have on staff that I can go ahead and actually put in place to reach those kids.
Somehow or another reach those kids.
Yes, at the end of the day, it's the end result.
Now, have you or do you have what I would call maybe like a youth advisory committee within your organization that may be able to kind of advise you how kids are thinking today? Because, you know, when we were kids, we came up in a different era. Like you say, the neighborhood took care of us in a lot of places, in a lot of times, and we had a different perspective and outlook on the world. But kids today face a lot tougher things, a lot more intense things probably than we ever did, especially as youth. And so have you thought about having like a youth advisory committee that can tell you kind of what the kids are facing, you know, on a one-on-one level? You know,
it's ironic you say that. It's right. I have 3 different advisory teams that I have set up at the high school right now.
Okay.
You know, we have different particular programs. Like we have a program where we're partnering with the Oakland County Sheriff Department. You know, we have, you know, of course, with Trayvon Martin case and the Mike Brown case, there's a big void in between where how kids look at law enforcement and how kids look, and you're using this as an example, and how kids are actually looking at, dealing or interacting with law enforcement. And also on the other side too, I think law enforcement, I think they can go ahead and use a good gut punch too to help them understand the mindsets of some of these kids, you know? And so for us to be able to reach these kids to the fullest, I can't assume that I know where these kids are coming from and how they're thinking.
Right.
So the best way to go ahead and do that is put the people in place that you can ask these questions, the ones that are out in the neighborhoods every day with their peers. And we have a panel like with, and I have partners like Ray Wiggins, Deputy Ray Wiggins, who are, from different organizations with these different initiatives that help us give a combined, a 1-2 punch to go ahead and make those little panels that we have. I call them panels of students to go ahead and help us push all these initiatives forward, and it's huge. Absolutely huge, because at the end of the day, it goes right back to the initial statement. We're not in here just for the sake of saying, hey, we threw a program. Right. Yes, sir. Photo op.
Right.
We're here to go ahead and say we had a program, and it really touched people.
What kind of feedback are your panels with the youth? What kind of feedback are you getting from them?
The thing about these kids, they're very honest, and that's what I love about them. Because realistically, it's been times we came in there where we thought we had it all figured out, and those kids, like, no, sir, Mr. Phillips. That's not gonna float. And I have to also humble myself enough to say, you know what, I need to listen.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't know it. I don't know it all, and it is a divide. I'm not gonna say how old I am, but the thing to it is, there's a little bit of a variance in between us.
Right.
But these kids also too, they're the ones that are going to show you so much, how much they appreciate, number one, being a part of something like this. This is huge for them. It's something they're going to put on their resumes when they go off to college, something they're going to put on their resumes when they're trying to get a job, or if they decide to go off into the armed forces somewhere. And and it's teaching leadership, it's putting them in that type of environment where they can go ahead and see firsthand, and and also too, well, anytime you feel like you're a part of something, you really push hard to make sure that something really hits and sticks.
Right.
And so that's what those panels do. So it's a threefold, and I can't beat it.
Now, do you see, tell me rather the value that you would see in having one of your youth advisory panels, perhaps if there were to be a youth panel or a youth advisory group started within the community, the CMC, or CAC rather, Community Advisory Committee. Could you see something like that working well together?
I think that would be huge. I absolutely do, because we as adults, we as adults, we interact with each other. And a lot of times we're constantly talking about the woes and the trials and tribulations of our youth, but we really don't get it as a whole. We really, really don't get it. And I humbly have to say, when I started this when I went full-fledged in with this foundation, is when I really started, it's like I got enlightened. I really did. I thought I knew it. I thought I had a good grasp of it all. And I'm still learning, Kevin, about what's taking place out here. And I'm doing this full time. This is what I do for a living at this point. Right. So imagine someone that just does it on a part-time basis. How could you possibly know everything you need to know about these kids? And so if you put a group of students together like that and put that in the middle of that mix, it would be absolutely, it'd have astronomical effects.
And the kids are just fertile ground for like multiple ideas. If you ask them, they have bunches of ideas running through their head on any given day, and
it's true.
In some cases, they're just waiting for someone to ask them, like, ask me what I think.
It is absolutely true, and and think about it. First of all, we have some magnificent kids in the city. We really do. We got some diamonds. I'm not going to say diamonds in the rough. We got diamonds laid out, in the middle of black sand where they're going to go ahead and shine. It's just the fact is, it's our job to go ahead and realize and recognize these diamonds as such, and also help them, help polish them. That's our job. And realistically, I'm encouraged. At the end of the day, I see the end outcome. I see where we can go ahead and go. I see where we can actually get to. But it's going to take the village process, the whole village concept, to go ahead and make this happen.
Right.
But if the school board or even if the municipalities was looking to go ahead and actually push forward this initiative, I think that would be very wise of them. To go ahead and consider that.
Now, your programs, you've talked a lot about some things like soft skills, building resumes, and how to do interviews and that kind of thing. And you've talked about like giving out scholarships for college-bound students.
Yes.
And some kids are more college ready than other kids. So for those students who may feel like, hey, college is not for me, but I know I've got to get out there and be productive in life.
I'm glad you said that.
How do you address those? How do you address those students?
The one thing that we as a community, which is really crazy, and it's ironic that we're talking about this, I just had a meeting about 2 weeks ago where basically, I dealt with a group of parents, and these parents constantly, their whole mindset is these kids have to go to college, period. And here's the reality. I'm a college product. I was fortunate enough, it was just made for me. But there are certain kids that college just isn't their number one, their number one option. They're not mentally prepared to go ahead and do it. But these kids are extremely gifted with their hands. We got to listen to our children.
Right.
We really do.
Right.
And it's not so much, it's like trying to take a square peg and jam it into a circular hole. It just doesn't fit. You know, it's at the end of the day, it's our job to help these kids become successful, because there are a lot of other options out there for these kids to make some dynamic livings for themselves without them having to go to college. You know, skilled trades, you know, I mean, you know, or I mean, anything, even from your barbers and your beauticians. I mean, they make a lot of money.
They do.
It's, you know, I mean, you're incorporating, some of these kids are so charismatic too. If you go ahead and take that and put that with their skills that they have with their hands, oh, I mean, the sky is the limit for them.
Right.
But I just had to hammer the point home with those parents that, no, we got to go ahead and listen. Because one of the particular parents has a kid that, I mean, this kid is about one of the most gifted painters I've ever seen. There is so many different ways for that kid to make great money for themselves with that skill. But, you know, you're trying to push this kid totally away from it. She wants the kid to be an engineer. Oh, my goodness. You know, and don't get me wrong, we need more engineers.
Right.
Yeah, we really need more minority engineers as well.
This is very true.
So, but at the end of the day, this kid can do something that a lot of people can't do. I know I couldn't do it. Right. You go ahead and you have me paint up against one of his canvases, it's like I'm doodling. Right. So yeah. So
I don't even doodle well. So.
Yes.
No, you know, as someone, I know that, like you say, we're up there in age, so this may or may not be relevant. But I know that when I came out of high school years ago, I intrinsically knew that I wasn't ready for college. Yes. And had I gone straight to college, I'm not sure that I would have succeeded, because I didn't have the right mindset, didn't have the right discipline. Yes. The military saved me, because I had an opportunity to join the Army and spend 6 years in the Army, and that changed me as a person in so many different ways. And when I got out, I was then focused, determined, and on the path to being a college graduate. Have you worked with the military at all to kind of identify those students that may have a desire or an interest in being a part of the military? Absolutely, I have. Actually, we just had a huge program over at Pontiac High School, which is the name of the program is called, excuse me, I'm about to say Mark for Success. Remind me to come back to that particular program too, 'cause I think that's important too. It's Future Builders. It's the name of the program. The program is a mandatory event for every junior and senior. Originally it was every junior and senior, because this is our third year doing it, but we opened it up where we had every 10th, 11th, and 12th grader, not only in the school district, but within the whole walls of Pontiac, to go ahead and attend. So we had pretty close to 1,200 kids over at Pontiac High School. We had 68 organizations. Anything that a kid could possibly look to do to get into after graduating in the way of a career was represented at this fair. Everything from skilled trades, armed forces, public servants, all the way to every college that you possibly have in the state. And also, too, we even had some colleges from out of the state that actually came out there. And it's huge because, you know, they get a chance. Me personally, if a kid tells me that they're interested in the armed forces, I can only tell you, my father was in the Air Force. I can only tell you some of the stories that he told me about, but I don't know enough about that particular branch of military to go ahead and give them good advice. Right. So why not bring that in front of these kids and give these kids the opportunity to sit across the table like you and I are right now? Knowledge. Yes, to be able to go ahead and find out what it would take to put themselves in a position to do that. But also, what was really rare about this particular event, I didn't ask them only to come in talking about, you know, the particular, what they do at these institutions. I also asked them to come with a long laundry list of resources, financial resources, and also to help push them forward. Because see, a lot of times with kids, you know, sometimes you got to talk with money. Right. Yeah. So if you join the Air Force or you join the Army, this is what you have. You know, you have the GI Bill we can talk about. You can talk about finance. Sometimes you get a signing bonus for certain job qualifications that you have. Absolutely. But I wouldn't know, like you just shot that out at me. Right. I just wouldn't know enough about that. Yeah. So I can't be ignorant enough or foolish enough to go ahead and think that I can be an authoritative expert on it. So you open up those avenues and create the actual event. And that's another route. You know, we talked about skilled trades. Skilled trades is very strong, obviously, in this area because of the manufacturing base that we have in Michigan and everything. But in a sense, the military can be a skilled trades type profession because they teach you a skill based upon your aptitude and what you have a natural proclivity to do anyway. Yes. And they tend to want to guide you into those things that you are naturally strong at. So I just think that's a wonderful thing, you know, to include the military element. Now, when does this event happen where you had all of these different elements? Always happens the first week in March. First week in March.
First
so
week
it
in
just
March.
happened
Yes.
this past March.
Yes.
Okay, so we got to make sure that we have you back before the next one,
Oh, most
so that
definitely.
we can alert people to it well enough in advance. I'm sure you had great attendance.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're talking about that gymnasium was jam-packed. You know,
Okay.
I mean, we had also breakout sessions where parents could come
Okay.
to find out more about some of these particular institutions.
That's key, because parents sometimes are worried about, what is my little Johnny or Sally going to do?
It's a divide.
Yeah.
It's a divide, and sometimes we can't go ahead and rely totally on these kids. It's, you know, going home and taking this information and, you know, and disseminating it in the appropriate capacity.
Right.
We just can't expect that to happen.
Exactly.
So take it off the table. Bring them in here so they can hear firsthand.
There you go.
So.
Now, you were going to talk about another success program you talked about?
Yeah, basically what it was is there's a program called Mark for Success.
Mark for Success.
That's what's coming up soon,
Okay.
actually. And what Mark for Success is this. The school district of Pontiac, they identified the fact, and I appreciate them for this as well, because they had to, it's kind of humbling to have to say this. They had kids that were graduating out of the walls of this district, but they just were not prepared for life. They weren't. They didn't know how to position themselves, whether it be how to just engage. If I meet you for the first time, I'm trying to get a job from you. These kids didn't know how to go. They didn't know how to look you in your eye.
Right.
They didn't know how to go ahead and give you a firm handshake,
Yep.
the appropriate way to dress,
Yep.
you know, or the appropriate way to even put together a resume.
Right.
And so what we did was we came up with this huge initiative to go ahead and bridge that gap. It starts on when they're 11th graders. So it's a 2-year process now.
Okay.
And so basically, it's teaching them the interviewing process in 2 phases. The first one is the standard, is the basics of the interviewing process.
Mm-hmm.
The second, they'll get that when they're juniors. When they become seniors, we give them the behavioral interviewing process, because you know that's huge now in the job force,
Right.
because a lot of people are trying to kind of weed out,
Yes.
you know, certain,
Right.
especially in the state of Michigan too, with the economy being what it is, jobs are a little bit more scarce.
Yep.
So some of these employers are taking some other methods. So what we're doing is we're breaking down. We give them a huge learning curve
Okay.
that we have to go ahead and make sure we get these kids to overcome, to get them into a position where we have all these particular professionals. We had CEOs, CFOs, we had you know, business owners.
Wow.
A lot of big who's who, politicians as well.
Okay.
That are sitting across the table from our kids in Pontiac High School, giving every kid, 268 kids, a one-on-one interview with them after we take them through this training.
Okay. Okay.
So we take them through this training, we prepare them, then they sit across the table from these kids, and, you know, and that's been done hugely with as an organization, a group over at Pontiac High School that's
Okay.
been working.
And did they get feedback from those interviews that they have? with
Oh,
those people?
absolutely. Absolutely, because the thing is, data is everything too.
Yes.
You know, we can't go ahead and make the assumption that we're really doing something great here. And, you know, we got to go ahead and ask the kids.
You got to measure it.
Yeah, and also to ask the individuals that sat across the table from these kids too, and be very practical with you. I mean, one of the guys came in, and, you know, his thought process about Pontiac schools, he was honest with me. He said, you know, I really wasn't expecting a lot. He said, but after I walked out of that door, he said, man, I feel so rejuvenated about the fact what's happening in the walls of this city. That meant everything to me, because you're taking somebody who was not a believer and you converted them just by the power of what's taking place in those schools.
That's how you know you've reached them. If you get that kind of conversion, as you call it, that's how you know you've reached them. You've touched them in a way that you've unlocked something. You've unleashed something in them, where he says, I see the world differently now than I did before I came in.
Yes.
Now, when is your mark for success? When is that? Is that going to happen here soon?
Yes, it's going to happen in June, the first week in June.
First week in June.
First week in June.
And that's for the students basically in Pontiac High School.
Yes. What happens is you have this particular program it's been made part of the senior exit packet.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
mandatory now for
Okay.
every junior and senior to go through it.
That's
And that's what we had to go ahead and do. And unfortunately, kind of get to some hard methods
Yes.
to go ahead and reach them. And
Yes.
so that's what we did. And the outcome, the way these kids talk about that experience, I mean, it's priceless.
Well, because I think sometimes they have a romanticized view of what the real world is going to be like after graduation. And I think your program gives them a realistic view of how the world really is. The world expects you to be able to look someone in the eye, carry on a conversation, give a proper handshake, and basically talk about who you are and why they should hire you for their position, assuming that you're interviewing for a job. Now, a question that I have for you, anywhere within your foundation or any of the programs that you offer, do you do any type of teaching of financial literacy at all?
Absolutely, got a huge fun. Actually, I have a great friend of mine. He's also my frat brother. His name is Ryan Mack. You know, he has Optum Capital out of New York. It's huge. Actually, you see him on CNN. I have him that's going to be coming in within a matter of about a month and a half to go ahead and do a big, huge financial literacy piece. And some of these programs we already have in place too actually touch base on that too, because at the end of the day, you know, you have kids. We don't understand the magnitude of how to make a dollar stretch.
Right.
We really don't. You know, and I really have psychological discomfort with some of the things that are being taught in the households, because we come from a generation too, you know, where I had parents originally that used to tell me, actually, they still kind of hammered it home, you know, being a business owner just wasn't a big part of the equation.
Right.
I should be happy with just getting my education,
right,
getting a good 9-to-5 job, and let me work that job and get my benefits and all. Yeah, but you know, things change. It was a big paradigm shift with that, where you know you don't have those type of retirement plans in place anymore.
Right.
Those benefit packages. Right. So we got to go ahead and whatever money we make, we got to go ahead and create a way to make that money stretch and grow while it's just sitting there. You know, and also we got to get away from this hood rich mentality. You know, where we get out here, we get it. First thing we want to go ahead and do is buy the nicest ride, the nicest clothes, you know, when ladies want to get their hairs, you know, maxed out. But at the end of the day, they don't got 2 nickels to rub together.
Right.
But then when you start adding a family dynamic in the middle of that, when you start raising kids, it is your job as a parent to make sure you financially put your kids in a good spot.
Right. The impact is much greater once you bring children into the equation.
Absolutely.
And I think that with the financial literacy part, not only in terms of, you know, household budgeting, how to deal with a bank, how to open up a checking account, how to write a check.
Yes.
Understand that when you write a check, you got to have the money in the bank to cover the check.
Yes. Or
you know, the whole credit card thing and how credit can be beneficial or it can be destructive. You know, and that kind of, I'm sure you're teaching all of those things, but then you take that in the context of entrepreneurship, of you know, owning your own business, being a business owner, and the financial literacy that goes along with that as well. And I just think that entrepreneurship as a career path for some of the kids is huge, because you know, the kids they're very crafty, they're very knowledgeable, and that could be another path for them to pursue as well.
Most definitely, Kevin. Most definitely, because when you look at it, you know, some of these kids are extremely gifted. I mean, really. I mean, they got all the tools, but they just need the know-how. You know, and when you start talking about like entrepreneurship, for instance, you know, there's nothing better than creating some type of environment where you're able to work for yourself, but also create jobs where you can go ahead and control and also look at building something and growing something. And that's called leaving legacy too. Right. When this is all said and done, you can go ahead and leave that behind, you know, to your loved ones. You know, and I think that's absolutely huge too. And we as African Americans and minorities, I think we don't have enough of that taking place within our, not most definitely our community. I can count maybe a handful of business owners that I know, you know, people that were just constantly, that we knew, you know, like the Elams, for instance, you know, they own multiple different businesses, you know, but it's a handful, just a handful.
Not enough, basically. Not enough folks in that realm, or not enough people nowadays seeing that as a viable option. I mean, there was a time perhaps in Pontiac where you could come straight out of high school, not have to go to college, find a great job working in one of the plants or doing skilled trades work or that kind of thing. But those jobs are fewer and fewer, it seems like, every year. And so now you've got to, you know, someone has to find a different path to be able to sustain themselves and to continue to grow as a person. So a couple more things before we wrap up here. How the Pontiac schools are working very closely with your foundation.
Yes.
What more can the community do to make sure that we're plugged in to what you're doing with the foundation? Are you always looking for volunteers? Are you looking for people to do instruction? And how can those folks reach out to you? How can they get hold of you, or either to learn more about the foundation or to figure out if they can offer their services to help? Oh,
absolutely. Well, first thing first, to get every drop of information on what the foundation stands for and represent, and a list of our programs, if they go to our website, www.theascendfoundation.org. We have a good layout breakdown, a descriptive breakdown of what it is that we do. And as far as volunteers are concerned, absolutely. Like we were talking about earlier, it's all hands on deck. We need help. It's a lot of kids we got to go ahead and reach out here. And I would be foolish to think that at the end of the day, that I can go ahead and do this, or just the small staff that we have as an executive board can go ahead and reach them. So please, anybody out there that want to be a part of this foundation, that want to go in and help push these programs and initiatives forward, please come out. Please feel free. Our phone number is on the website, so you can reach out to me directly, because everybody else, I've had this number since '97, so it's basically a community number anyways.
Right.
But we'd love to take it. You have a specialty skill, bring it to the table. We're going to make it work.
We've been learning so much from Kaino Phillips of the Ascend Foundation here today. We've got a lot more to learn from Kaino, but right now we're going to take a short break and run a few commercial messages, and we'll be right back after this.
Nothing ever gonna make this world better if we don't start believing that love really, really, really is the answer. Everybody join hands, 'cause it's time now. Spread the love all over the world. Spread it all over the world.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know, wherever you are.
So, Kaino, we've talked about a lot of different things about how the Ascend Foundation is working with the school district and working with the youth and everything like that. But what do you see as the biggest challenge for students outside of the school system?
Well, Kevin, just speaking frankly about this, these kids got some real issues taking place. I'm talking about issues that I couldn't fathom dealing with as adults.
Right.
I mean, you have kids. These type of kids that I see and I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. You have kids that are basically raising their siblings. You got a 14, 15-year-old kid is responsible for getting their 5 and 6 and 7-year-old kid fed, right, ready and prepared to go ahead and go to school because there's some other challenges taking place in the household. You got kids that are fighting through parents with drug addictions. You have kids that are sitting over here dealing with molestation type situations taking place in the households.
Yes.
And these kids are angry, and and rightfully so. I mean, really, I'm not a parent, but these kids, I feel like the more and more that I'm around them, I feel like that, I'm a part of their lives, and it hurts me to my core to go ahead and watch some of these kids go through that. But to go ahead and find out some of these things are taking place in their households, and these parents are some parents, some other family members, and there's no adults doing anything about that to go ahead and help these kids. I mean, could you imagine being trapped in that yourself as a child?
Right.
You remember when you were 13, 14, 15 years old? I mean, man, we were running around trying to be silly and getting into everything that we had no business probably trying to get into, but we did, and it was all in fun. No harm, no foul.
There was a safe zone there.
Yes, there's no safe zone with these children right now. And what's the procedure when a kid come and tell you, Mr. Phillips, I'm scared to go home for the weekend because, my uncle's coming over. What's the procedure for that? Dealing with those type of issues with these kids, and it got to be helped. They got to, because at the end of the day, I don't care what nobody say. No kid is a lost cause.
Well, and I think that's where, it's important that organizations like the Ascend Foundation are stepping into that space and trying to show these kids that there's a different path. And to take some of that burden off of them to say, look, it's not natural for a 13-year-old to be the head of household and have to make sure that everybody is fed, clothed, and taken care of. There's another path for you.
Yes.
And while that may be painful, it may be disruptive to the household in some ways, it's what's best for the kids.
Yes.
And so when you're working with the district and you're working with those kind of kids or whatever, what do you think the district can do to better communicate what it's doing for the kids?
Well, I think one thing that's extremely important is actually programs like this. You know, you talking about this is cable access. This is an opportunity to go ahead and reach so many people within the walls of this community. Because one thing about it, I know about Comcast cable. You know, we barely keep our lights on, but we have cable taking place up in our household. And it's important. It's a great tool. It's a great opportunity to go ahead and take your leaders. Like, for instance, Superintendent Williams. You know, this woman's she's doing a magnificent job out here. She's sitting over here trying with every fiber of her being to create all these apps. She's trying to go ahead and make lemonade out of a bunch of radishes, you know, but I know this, you know, because I'm working with her. I really wish that we had more vehicles in place, maybe even to the extent of having her come into a program like this and tell the community, because they really want to hear what's taking place. Right. And what better to hear that coming from somebody like a Superintendent Williams, or hearing it coming from, you know, a President Kane or a Vice President Carter, people that are articulate, and people that are, especially when I look at like a Brenda Carter, you know what I mean, she's charismatic. Yes. You know, and we like to go ahead and gravitate to charisma.
And she's also very passionate about the students in the Pontiac district. She has been an advocate for them, you know, much like you've been an advocate for them as well.
For years.
We're working to try to get Superintendent Williams on the show, because she is doing a dynamic job with, you know, what she's had to work with and the circumstances under which she came into her position. But she's doing an awesome job in terms of trying to turn this big ship around.
I agree.
And our goal is to have her on the show to be able to tell the story to the parents of Pontiac.
It's
to
so
let
important.
them know what she's doing, how well it's going, the progress that's being made. So, you know, we're going to work to have her on the show here soon.
That would be phenomenal, because at the end of the day, you know, I'm out here on a day-to-day basis with these parents, and it's sometimes something we talked about earlier in this segment, you know, a lot of times when you kind of passing along information, it can really get distorted. Right. When you start from person number 1, by the time you get to person number 20, it's a total different beast. But what better to go ahead and take, you know, either your leadership over at the administration office, or even leadership like, you know, your Principal Johnsons over at the high school or at these particular schools, to tell you firsthand what's happening in the walls of their schools. Right. So you can know as a community, listen, this is what I think we need to do to get behind them. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of great people in the city that do want to get behind a lot of these programs. They just need to know about them.
A lot of good people doing a lot of good work.
Yes, something that you alluded to earlier in this conversation. And so when you put that all together, it'd be a great formula. So I really hope that's something that you all can make happen.
Yeah, we're gonna make that happen, and we appreciate you being on the show and being able to do those things. Yes. And we're gonna work to get Superintendent Williams on the show. So
we need to have all hands on deck. Right. So come on, jump in.
Folks, we are doing everything that we can to help the students of Pontiac have a future, so that they can decide what their future is going to be. And the Pontiac School District is playing a big role in that. And with help from people like Kaino Phillips and the Ascend Foundation, we're reaching as many kids as we can. So if you have an interest in working with the kids through the foundation, through the Ascend Foundation, you can go to the website, theascendfoundation.org. We'll put that graphic on the screen to make sure that you know where to go. Once you go to the website, look at all the programs that they have. Look at the track record that they have of success. Talk to folks in the community that have been touched by this foundation, that can tell you the good work that they're doing. Kaino Phillips is a citizen of Pontiac. He is a child of Pontiac, grew up here, his family's here. Even though his dad was a servant to the city through politics, Kaino's a servant through the city through this Ascend Foundation, and his love to help make the lives of children better. So we hope that you'll join in with us, and really try to touch the lives of these young people and move them forward. And we'll take any kind of help that we can get. I'm sure Kaino would take any volunteers that are willing to work. Kaino, thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Kevin, I appreciate you.
You've got an awesome foundation. You're doing great work.
Thank you, sir.
And I know that we'll have you back on the show soon, so that you can talk about some other successes and things that you got going on.
Look forward to it. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Folks, from the studios of TV 22 PSD, I'm Kevin McCormick. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Take care.